What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome into the Wednesday Linc Live alongside Josh Davis. Very special show every single Wednesday. We get into all of the NFL and Philadelphia Eagles news live and answer your questions. So, first off, Josh, good evening. How are you? It's been a fun week.
It has been a fantastic, very fun week. I am doing well, and I know that you were excited to. You got a trip coming up. Been very busy week for you, but I'm excited to do this Wednesday Linc.
Yes, we won't have one next week. I'll be out of the country. I will be in, I think, Scotland next Wednesday, but we're going to the UK. We're going to Scotland. We're going to Ireland. We're going to Paris for the French Open. It'll be a fun 10-day trip. Try to post as much as I possibly can, but we won't obviously do a live show because it'll be like 3 a.m. there. So we'll have fun tonight, and there's actually a lot to
Unless you want to wake up.
I've thought about it. I was awake in Norway for the Eagle-Viking game week 2 on Monday night, and it was 3 a.m, and it was a rough day the next day. But what are you going to do?
I don't blame you. Get your rest.
It's exactly. And we do YouTube stuff almost every single day, so it's good to have a little bit of a break there as well. Let's start with the DJ Fluker news. This, to me, is really interesting. I see where like the narrative is going to go on this one, but I can't tell how I feel about it. So if you don't know what's going on, we'll start here. Eagles are working out their former 2013 first-round draft pick, which, first off, it's been a long time since DJ Fluker was drafted. I thought it was like 2018. It's 2013, which is crazy. And if you don't know what's going on here, Jordan Schultz has a really good picture and a really good tweet basically saying, veteran offensive lineman, he's working out with the Eagles today per the score. He lost over 40 pounds, working tirelessly to get in shape. Howie Roseman continues to work in the trenches. And if you haven't seen this video, it's pretty bizarre how big he looks. And not just big for an offensive lineman. He looks
intimidating.
Jacked. He looks really jacked. That's a massive human being right there, in like a normal gym, lifting with random people around him. So Fluker working out with Philly. You see him here working on his kickback, all good stuff. I think we need to be realistic. You're going to see a lot of headlines today and tomorrow about the Eagles are going to turn this guy into the next Jordan Mailata. He's going to be the next great, no-name left tackle. It's not really the case. He's a guy who came into the league. He was overweight. He couldn't get his conditioning down. Couldn't figure it out with a couple of NFL teams. Got to the point where he was cut by these teams. I mean, he's a completely free agent, and now is trying to make his way back to the National Football League. And while I'm interested, he looks good. He's not a savior by any means, and would take probably a couple of years of learning under Stoutland University to get him ready to play, in my opinion.
I agree. I think so too. And shout out to all the people in the comment section. I see Dark Brown. What's up, Josh? How's it going? Everybody, make sure to go like real quick. Give us the likes. Let's boost those up. But I'm with you. I mean, like, to your point, he's not going to be turned into the next Jordan Mailata because, like, he's 32, 33 years old, something like that. So, I mean, he's towards the tail end, or kind of was out of the league really for the last, 2 or 3 seasons, and he's coming back. So, yeah, you're not expecting to have, like, the sky's the limit potential. It's an interesting storyline, as you brought up too, with Jeff Stoutland, the connection there. He played with Jeff Stoutland when he was at Alabama. So, there's relationship. He also was at the Chargers whenever Nick Sirianni was at the Chargers. So, the storylines, you could say this makes a lot of sense. I'm not necessarily against it either, but it's just a depth add, right? Like, that's a player that you're looking to bring into the group, add some competition. It's unique. And I know Bleeding Green Nation had the article on it for like the versatility that he brings because he played at right guard, right tackle, and at left tackle. So there you go. Yeah. So there's the numbers. So, I mean, you like to have a player who can play in multiple positions, but the fact that right guard is the position that he played the most, I mean, is it a little bit curious to go, well, okay, we have Tyler Steen and we have Cam Jurgens, which apparently, I mean, they like both of those players, and a lot of people, you can make arguments for Cam Jurgens, you can make arguments for Tyler Steen. I've seen this a lot recently with Jason Kelce being, an undersized center somewhat, that the idea of a Tyler Steen makes a little bit more sense because you have this massive, big-bodied individual next to him, and so you're not playing like a Cam Jurgens. So if that's the case, are you looking at Cam Jurgens as just another backup? I can't think so. I mean, I don't think that you invested that type of capital to go, oh, well, Cam Jurgens is just not going to compete for the starting job. So if you're doing that, then my thought on this says, again, it's never bad. You can't ever have too many offensive linemen, but I'm thinking you sign him right now. You're at what? I think 89 people on the roster, 89 signings. So get it up to 90, get DJ Fluker here if they end up doing that. Take him to training camp, and you know what? If he shines, that's great. And if he doesn't, oh well, you've done your due diligence on it. But yeah, it's not like, I don't know, this marquee signing, I feel like, from that terms of the perspective. But I don't know. We'll see.
Right. I think you hit it nail on the head. You bring him in. If he looks good during this, meeting today, workout today, whatever you want to call it, if he looks good, put him on the roster. There's no guarantee. He's there. He's a body. And if he pops, he pops. And I guess the thought process is he was a first-round draft pick, so somebody thought he was, worthy of playing in the National Football League.
Sure.
My thought with this, though, is maybe the idea from a championship caliber team to make sure you have the depth that way you don't have your season ruined whenever an injury were to happen, right? Think back to 2017. Philadelphia had some key injuries. Jason Peters went out, and they were able to throw Vaitai in there at left tackle, and he was just fine. If you were to have a worst-case scenario season where you lose a couple of star players, especially on the offensive or defensive line, it feels like Philadelphia, they've already done it defensively, but offensively wants to make sure that you're not going to be derailed if someone goes down week 14 and it ruins the entire offensive line. Because we've seen that happen where you lose one guy and you can't protect on the right side for the entire rest of the season and your season's blown up. So not to say Fluker would save you from that, but I think the talent and the thought of him being a first-round draft pick makes some sense. I don't know. It's not a big deal. Like people are saying in the comments, which we're going to go to in a second, depth. That's right. But he could maybe come in and play well. But who's to say Jack Driscoll wouldn't be better being in the system a couple years? Sua Opeta's been at Stoutland University for, 3 years now? These guys have had more time. They weren't first-round draft picks, but, what are you going to do?
Right.
Okay, comment section. A lot of people joining us here. Tyler Wallace, he jumps in. Cool Rains. Hello, everybody. Dark Brown says how he's in a class by himself, adding Penny. Our players familiar with each other. Penny ran behind Fluker in Seattle. That's a good point there. David Moore says, yo, what's up? Dark Brown says, looking forward to the show. Tyler Wall says, give me DJ Fluker, and if Byard does actually get cut, some Kevin Byard. We haven't talked about Kevin Byard in a while. Now, one of those names that did not get cut and might just end up playing for his team. Think Buda Baker as well. Louis Hilton says, let's go, Thomas. I live in Scotland, Glasgow. There you go. Shout out. I'll be in Edinburgh. Hey. Edinburgh, and then we're going up to the Scottish Highlands, I guess. We're going to go to... we're drive by the famous bridge in Harry Potter where the train, the Hogwarts Express goes. And then I think we go to where they filmed all the Black Lake shots in Harry Potter. So it'll be fun.
Very nice.
More comments here. Dark Brown says he manhandled Hargrave when Seattle played Pittsburgh. That's all true, but how long ago was that? I mean, that was 4 or 5 years ago. He is 32 years old. That is pretty old for an offensive lineman. Philadelphia is one of the few teams that has older offensive linemen that still play at a high level. Lane Johnson's up there. Kelsey's up there. Peters for a time was up there, but I don't know. It doesn't guarantee this whole idea that he's going to be ready to play or good enough to play, but I don't know. We'll see.
It's interesting. I mean, yeah, to your point, there's no guarantee to it. If anyone can turn this thing around, it's going to be Jeff Stoutland and DJ Fluker. And again, you can go back to the point of the relationship that they have. But yeah, to me, it would be just as surprising if he were to make the roster, to make the final roster, as it would be the fact that he were not to. Like, there's not expectations going into it and saying like, oh, wow, for sure, you're going to sign this guy. This guy will be on the roster. We'll see. Like, maybe he plays into the position, but I don't know. It's questionable. Again, to your point, you always need this offensive line depth. It's never a bad thing, which, maybe for some other teams, I saw the 49ers being mentioned here a second. They always could use some offensive line depth or more some scheming. But you talk about the quarterback change, or the rule really, with the quarterback 3. I wanted to get your take on that because, it shakes up a lot of things of how you actually game plan and the structure of all of that. But like, there's the argument of, does it really matter? Because if you're on a third string quarterback, like, do you expect to maybe still win the game? The 49ers would say yes, right? Like, they would say, give us this in the NFC Championship game and we would have won. But Hassan Reddick just changed the NFL. So curious your thoughts on the QB3.
Well, first off, remember, you and I were at the NFC Championship game, and the 49ers did have a healthy second-string quarterback come in Josh Johnson, and he wasn't able to do anything. And so it's like, okay, so you're saying not the second-best quarterback on your roster, but the third-best quarterback, whoever that could have been, some practice squad guy, could have saved the Niners season. I mean, of course, we don't buy this. It's a good rule change. It's fine. I mean, any team could have dressed 3 quarterbacks at any given week if they wanted to. It would have taken a roster spot, but technically, if you were that worried about it, which maybe the 49ers at this point should be, could have drafted a third quarterback, but now it lets you do it without having to take the roster spot, and so blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Does it give a chance for maybe Ian Book to make the roster and Tanner McKee to be on the practice squad? Sure, it might, but it's not that big of a deal in the end because, like you said, if you have to go to your third-string quarterback in an NFC Championship game, you're probably not going to win that game anyway. And let's say the Niners, let's just say they would have brought in their third-string quarterback, insert whatever no-name guy you want. Let's say he would have beaten the Eagles. Brock Purdy's elbow was completely done after that. He didn't throw a football until like 2 weeks ago. They would have then gone and beat the Chiefs? Really? Is that what you think is going to happen? I get it, and I think it's more important for like a week 4 game or a week 6 game. But for the playoffs, you don't want these teams to advance anyway. And it sounds unfair, and it sounded fair if the Eagles lost their first 2 quarterbacks, but you aren't beating the other opposing AFC team with your third string guy. So it doesn't really matter. But it's funny that Reddick, a play you and I both were at the game to witness, literally, I mean, it's like the Tuck rule. I mean, literally changes the National Football League. This should be called the Reddick rule.
Yep. Because they hated it. All the storylines, everything else they want to believe and say, oh, our product was kind of ruined a little bit or tainted, and the 49ers are going to complain as they do, or as they are for this scenario. But it's funny because you go back to, like, Shanahan's made some comments of saying, like, what, they have 3 franchise capable or ready quarterbacks, in Darnold, Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy. So, that what, you just load up on 3 quarterbacks. But to me, that's such a backward line of thinking. Like, you get your guy and you surround the pieces. But I don't know, just something funny that I thought. I was curious to get your take on it. So that's I agree though. I don't think it's really going to matter. You're going into this with your starter's your starter, maybe your backup, as we've seen, Nick Foles, like that can help, but to the third string, like that's just so far down the line.
Yeah. I mean, literally think in Philadelphia terms. That would be like expecting Ian Book to waltz out there, or Tanner McKee if he wins the job this year, and not only beat a 49er defense, but then go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. I mean, it just doesn't happen, especially in an NFC Championship game, whereas Nick Foles, second-string guy, had played in the league before and still had like 2 months to get ready. I mean, literally, he had all these games where he was able to kind of figure things out. They changed the offense, and the rest is history. I want to ask you about this story. This, to me, is very interesting. Now, you can gloss over this, and you can read this as a, who cares? Jordan Davis making major progress is what you're hearing. Whether he's slimmed down, I've heard that rumor. Whether it's just reading defenses, reading offenses, being a nose tackle, knowing where to be, maybe his first step. I'm not sure, but you see the tweet here from Thomas R. Peterson. Davis's role is going to increase a lot heading into year 2. This does come from Greg Cosell, who I think is very respected in terms of film and management regarding Philadelphia. I did not mean to click on that right there. But at the same time, this to me could be massive for Philadelphia if it's true to the full extent. If this is true to the full extent, then you have a scenario where Davis becomes the first-round draft pick he was drafted to, alongside Cox, alongside Milton Williams, and now alongside Jalen Carter. It could get really interesting if he turns out to be what he was at Georgia. It's just a National Football League version.
It could be, yes, and that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I did a show out. I know you talked about it as well, but yes, to your point, it's like, okay, the first question that I had when this report came out is, great, okay, major progress, but like, what does that mean? Like, what are we talking about exactly here? It's smoke and mirrors this time of year. Like, oh, hey, someone's getting better. They're gonna have a breakout year. They're on the top of the depth chart. But we're just talking about it because, quite honestly, we need to do something before the regular season starts, or at least before training camp. There's only so much time we could fill the void with, but it's still exciting anytime you have a guy like Greg Cosell that you mentioned that brings this up, because I don't think that he's just like going for, grabbing headlines. Like, he's actually going to report something. So obviously he's seeing or hearing something that's noteworthy to say, yes, he's making major progress. And I don't know. Is it he is in shape? He's in better shape. He can play more downs. But again, you could also go back to the fact and say, the Eagles' rotational D-line is not asking him to do that, and they probably won't. Like, he's going to be a first and second down player. Maybe he can get after the passer a little bit more, but it still wouldn't surprise me if they said, no, you know what, we're going to do first and second down. The other, I guess, case that I could make, and I know Charles Davis had also mentioned this, about talking about Jordan Davis and the impact, or I guess the improvement that he'll have on this season, is more so kind of to your point about Jalen Carter being added, because Jordan Davis has kind of been on record of saying, like, that's my guy. And both of them kind of reciprocate that, but saying that Jalen Carter helps Jordan Davis to be unleashed because he knows what Jalen Carter is going to do. And those two work in tandem perfectly. So I don't know. Is it just the fact that those two are going to be together? Is it he's in better shape? Is he learning the offensive better, getting some kind of keying off of offensive linemen, where they are in their stance or what they're looking at? I don't know. I mean, it's all speculation, but I am excited, and I do definitely expect Jordan Davis to take that next step this year. He's going to be better than last year. I don't think he was terrible, but the injury and all the derailing and rookies, I mean, it's hard to be a rookie in this league, especially on the D line. So I think he's going to be much better this year.
I like what you prefaced, though. What has he gotten better at? We just don't know. He looks better. Okay, well, there was reports this week that Quez Watkins looked better, and there are reports that Nolan Smith looks way better than we could have expected. I mean, everybody looks better.
Which the photo of Nolan Smith, I mean, come on. You probably know the one I'm referencing. I think I've seen Hulk references and all the other stuff with it, but it's easy to take a picture. He does look huge. I mean, the size concerns, you take a look at one of those, but again, it's easy to see one picture and freak out about it. But I'm excited. I'm telling you, Nolan Smith, that is the jersey that my wife is getting. Like she was the most excited about Nolan Smith, and she's not. I mean, she's originally from Wisconsin. She's originally a Packers fan, but she was like, no, I got to rep Nolan Smith. I'm all on board, so I'm all for it.
That no one gets a report saying that they look bad this time of year. There are no reports out there saying that X player looks a little fat or looks a little sluggish or he's not. He's definitely regressed this year. Like, well, you hear that in training camp. You don't hear that right now,
unless you're the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you know, kind of like D-Hop, the whole like, who do you want to play for? Yeah. Did you see that? That was pretty hilarious. He's on the podcast with Brandon Marshall, and he asked me like, hey, who you know, top 5, what quarterbacks?
Right.
You go through the list, or he gets what he says 4 of them. He's got one more to pick, and they're like Dak Prescott, and he's kind of like, not really. No, I loved it.
I don't want to go off on Dak right now. I want to answer some questions here, but I do think last year did do some damage for other people in the league's view of Dak Prescott. Because I think a lot of NFL players viewed him as a B+ quarterback, an above average quarterback. You know, in the Kirk Cousins area where you can win a lot with him. Maybe you could win a Super Bowl with him. Last year, with all the interceptions, especially in big time moments, I think really took a step back for Dak Prescott, kind of like it did with Carson Wentz when you go back to 2018 and 2019, right? You see him what he does in 2017. Yeah. You just defend him like he's your son, and then he starts to make mistakes, and you go, oh, yeah, that's fine, it's fine. I think last year was a turning point for a lot of the people thinking about wanting to play with Dak or not. But an aside, interesting though. Joseph Dice says Nolan Smith's going to be an X factor. I keep saying in my shows, I don't know. I can't tell if Nolan Smith's going to get 3 sacks this year or 13. I have no idea. It seems like he, to me, is the biggest dark horse, which we'll talk about here in a second. He is the biggest, I have no clue factor on this entire roster because I just don't know if he's going to literally be Micah Parsons or he's just going to be somebody we forget about because Hassan Reddick is so good. I have no idea.
Hopefully I think he's going to be lined up on the field too much to not forget about him. But I agree with you. I mean, you know, you never know about a rookie coming in, but just the way that he approaches the game. I mean, Josh Sweat in his presser talked about Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and like how he's amazed at the level of professionalism that they've already come in with. Like they're here to work, which I mean, not as surprising with Nolan Smith, but it's great to hear saying that about Jalen Carter because the work ethic concerns and, you know, the rumors of is he going to be lazy and all this other approach. But I mean, Jalen Carter said all the right things in his interview at the NFLPA. What is it, the reveal for the jerseys or whatnot that he was at. And then again, Sweat in the interview today. So I'm excited. I think there's too much potential for Nolan Smith on this defense in a Sean Desai scheme for him to not be lined up all over the field. So, you know, I don't know necessarily if I'm going to say like 13 sacks, but I do think that you'll go at the end of this season and you'll say, yes, Nolan Smith was a playmaker on defense.
So it's nice. Says Nolan Smith's my favorite pick. I'm buying a Nolan Smith jersey for sure, just like I bought a Dean jersey. Princess Gamer says Nolan Smith is ripped too. Just saw a picture of minicamp. Good Lord. Yeah, you know, he is big. My only fear is that they don't need him to play right away. Like if he's not ready, they're not going to thrust him out there for all eyes to see because they have Reddick and they have pass rushers. So, but I guess you could make a glass half full argument there. That means if you do see him, he's earned the playing time and the Eagle defense thinks he's good enough to be out there to take away some reps from Reddick or to spell Reddick or to share the field with Reddick. I don't know. We will see.
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to go ahead and shift over to people with the most pressure going into the 2023 season and training camp. And I want to pull up the roster here and we'll answer more questions as we go here. But I think this is interesting. Let's start with offense. Who do we think on the Eagles offense is under the most pressure to perform at a decent level here in 2023? Now you could take Hurts off the board because Hurts is going to be under pressure always. Every quarterback is. You got to be good. Now you can talk about backing up last year's performance. We all expect them to do that. Somebody else. To me, the player with the most pressure to be really, 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 really good this year is probably going to be DeAndre Swift. I think it's either Swift or Gainwell. And I think the running backs, you can just, mix and match. It doesn't really matter. I see people saying Quez Watkins right now. We'll talk about him in a second. Yeah. But I think you have a scenario where this running game can be good, but this running game can also be insanely elite. Now, the problem is you don't have a number one back on this roster because Swift was drafted to be a number one back, but he's always been in a stable of running backs. So there's never been like the leader of a running back room on this roster like you had Miles Sanders last year where he was clearly the guy. Now you have a bunch of guys who either were often injured, Rashad Penny, who are still young, and Kenny Gainwell, who's never been the guy in Boston Scott except for Giants games, and DeAndre Swift, who was supposed to be the guy and then basically got booted out of his football team during his prime and wasn't given carries. To me, Swift, Penny, Gainwell are the three people who have the most pressure going into this season, because they can really take Philadelphia from a great running team last year to an elite running team that you just can't stop if they play well enough.
Yeah, that's completely fair, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I know we get Quez for a lot of comments there,
yeah,
and that's a very hot topic. But if you talk about the volume that's going to be had, like the running back, whoever that is going to probably get more than Quez. Now, he could win the wide receiver 3 job, and yes, he'll have some opportunities. So hopefully he makes the most of those in the bigger moments, because I saw the report, and I know I was talking with Joe Castro earlier in the week about his drop percentage and it being very similar to some upper echelon receivers. But it's like, is the difference of when he has those drops or when he has those mistakes, it seems to be the higher level game. So, but going back to the running back position, I mean, it's interesting because, like, yeah, you trade for DeAndre Swift, and immediately it's like, oh, RB1, he's going to have a phenomenal year. We can't wait, which I'm totally excited for that. But it's very easy to forget about the other 2 running backs. Like, it's very easy to forget about Rashad Penny, because whenever he first came over, it's like, oh my gosh, like this guy averages 6 yards a carry. He's a beast if he could just stay healthy, which I still think if he could stay healthy, I mean, I'm excited to see what he can do behind the offensive line.
Right.
But then let's not forget Kenny G, right? Like, I mean, he was the best running back on the Eagles team in the playoffs. I don't think that you could argue that. I mean, if you want to say Miles Sanders, I mean, maybe, but you're going to have to make a strong case against that. I would say it's Kenny Gainwell, and the stats, the numbers back it up. A lot of times, Miles was not as productive. All of a sudden, you insert Kenny G, there you go, another chunk yardage. So, I mean, he knows the offense. He's very comfortable with this offensive line running in this system with Stoutland, because, let's not undervalue this. It's not just like, hey, you go get the best running back and put him behind an offensive line and immediately they're going to click like another running back who's familiar. Stoutland has very specific run game. He's a run game coordinator for a reason. Like, that's half of his title. So he will help out with where the runs are going and how the blocks are going to be lined up. So, yes, I think that they all have pressure. I don't know who's going to end up getting the bulk of the carries, or if, it wouldn't surprise me too if by the very end of the season, assuming, no injuries, because that's always a possibility. But if there's no injuries there, like, you could have a very even, like, third split almost, with those 3 running backs, because they all present their own, I guess, areas of strengths. Because again, Kenny G knows the offense. He's good out of the backfield. You can throw it to him. He's got kind of more of that halfback mentality. I think Penny could be phenomenal, especially when you need, like, more of the bruiser. You get in the goal line situations, run it in. And then Swift seems to be probably the most of the all around between those. But again, you come back to, like, okay, how quickly is he going to assimilate? And he's also had some injury issues. So I would agree. The running back, there is some pressure there. Probably the most on Swift, yes, because he's been traded to a brand new team, and your agent zero, you put more heightened expectations. I'm sorry, but, like, he has to know what he did by that. Like, by choosing zero, you're putting the target on your back there. So I mean, I'd go back and forth. I would still probably say Quez, only because of all the speculation and Olamide Zaccheaus signing and him blowing up at fans on Twitter, but I could definitely be close with Swift.
Let's switch over here to defense. And sure, I mean, Watkins is up there, but I think you hit the nail on the head. He's not, I mean, at best, he's getting 40 catches. He gets anything over 50, and he's going to leave us and go somewhere else to be a wide receiver 2 somewhere. I mean, 50 catches, that would mean either someone got injured or Quez really balled out, because you can't take quick catches away from A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. Let's go over here defensively. I think there's more pressure on some players defensively. It's hard to pick. I see a lot of people saying Kobe Dean in the comment section. Someone just said Darius Slay has some pressure because people really didn't like some of his performances later on in the year, which, maybe it's fair, maybe it's not, whatever, however you want to say it. I know I'll always be on Bradbury week 1 against Juju. You don't want to see him get worked, twice in a row against this TikTok boy wide receiver. For me, it's Nicholas Morrow. I think Morrow is the other dark horse on this defense. I think really, if he plays well, then you truly have no flaws on this defense. But if he plays poorly and you got to start Dean and somebody else, whether that's Sean Bradley or Davion Taylor or, somebody else, you could have a little bit of a fear there at linebacker. Now, I mentioned in my show today that Philadelphia can have a mediocre linebacker room and still be okay. They're elite on the defensive line.
True.
Corners are great, safety, whatever. But I think Morrow really has a great chance to make some money, turn some heads, become a household name, because no one knew who he was when we signed him if you didn't watch Bears games. So I'll say Morrow. Give me a name of this defense that has a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I might just keep it in the same lineup, or I guess with the same positional battle. And I know a lot of people are saying Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, but it might be the easy pick here. But I would say, to me, I don't disagree necessarily of like Morrow does have some pressure, but also like he's a new player coming over. To me, it's Nakobe Dean, right? Because I mean, he even said in his presser today that he was ready to play last season. Like, he understood he's waiting behind Kazir White and TJ Edwards, but like he was ready. According to himself, he was ready. So you say that. You also were drafted for a reason. You had a lot of hype. You fell in the draft, got a chip on your shoulder, all the hype and everything going into this season. And we've got so much more time before we get to the regular season. So, I mean, to me, I think it's got to be Nakobe Dean, because for all those reasons mentioned, I mean, you got all your dogs here. You got all your Georgia dogs. You're going into this season. You have to show up now. Now, I think that he's going to live up to the hype. I said on one of my shows, I actually think that he is going to be close and flirting. This may sound crazy, but I think he will flirt with a Pro Bowl season. Wow. I really do. I think that he is going to have a phenomenal year. Again, let me just put the caveat out there, barring injury, because I think that discredits anything. But I think if he stays healthy, I really do. I believe in Nakobe Dean. I think that all of the expectations that the Eagles had for him were valid. And just because he didn't make it on the field last season does not mean that he doesn't have that capability. So I am looking forward to that. But at the same time, I think that's why he has the most pressure.
Princess Gamer says, let's see how Dean leads his teammates, how he can lead by example on the defense. Robert Elisandrini, I say your last name. Josh Sweat is good. We'll need to step up even more. I'll second that. Josh Sweat came into the league. Point. He was, not supposed to do much because he had the serious knee injury at Florida State, and he didn't do much early on. And then he kind of sparked and was like, wait a second, you might have someone really, really good here. And he wasn't bad last year, but there wasn't that double-digit, insane sack 15, as Reddick kind of took over, which is fine. I do think Josh Sweat needs to play a little bit better because they gave him that semi-early contract as if to say, hey, we believe you're going to be elite. Here's some really good money, a little early, and he hasn't fully lived up to it. And I don't want to, we're being picking and choosing here. It's not like he's bad. I love him. He's the best pass rusher we have. That's a true edge rusher because Reddick's technically, not a defensive end, however you want to call it. But I'll throw him in there. I saw someone say Reed Blankenship. I don't know how much pressure's on Reed Blankenship. It feels like the safety battle is a 3-horse race and you have 2 people or 2 spots. So he has a pretty good chance to win that battle, right? I mean, to me, it's more like it'll be Blankenship and Edmonds unless Sidney Brown balls out of his mind. So, we'll see about that.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know that there's as much of that pressure, but it'll be interesting to see if Reed Blankenship can actually, win back the starting job, I guess, if you want to view it that way. He didn't really have it, but he took it when CJ GJ was out. Yeah. So it was interesting too, though, to point out that James Bradbury seems to kind of, I guess, put his vote of confidence in Reed Blankenship, saying that was one of the reasons for returning Darius Slay and Reed Blankenship. So obviously he enjoys playing with him out there. Another, it's maybe not as much of like a pressure from the fan base, or at least I haven't been seeing this, but I'd say maybe the most pressure on a single individual player, just what they'll put on themselves, is Derek Barnett. Like, this is his season. It's make or break. You either make something happen and you get an extension, you get a contract worked out, or you're hitting the road. Like, you're going to a different team or hoping to sign with a different team. Now, I know it's all the injuries and everything else, but it's the injuries, the penalties, just not being. It's funny for a guy who was in the best place at the best time in the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game, but outside of that, it's like a lot of times seems to be in the worst place at the worst times, and making all these mistakes. So apparently, I think it was it Derek Gunn that had reported this, or some individual saying that the Eagles were thinking that he's going to have a breakout year. I know Darius Slay echoed that, saying, yes, this will be his breakout season. Yeah. So I don't think it's coming from just, Philly fans or the Philly organization for as far as pressure, but I think Derek Barnett is going into it going, this is it. Like, I have to make something happen. So I'll be interested to see.
Tyler Wall says, you guys know Duno Sweat was tied for Hargrave for second most sacks. True, he had 11 last year. Not saying it was bad at all, but to me, it felt like this was the 15 sack year. This was the 16 sack year. This was like the look out, Josh Sweat is going to ruin your day year. And while he was fantastic, again, fantastic, I hope he can get up to that 15 sack level to where everybody knows the name Josh Sweat and not just Eagle fans, right? Because that's kind of where you get to the National Football League, where no one knows who you are. Your fans know who you are of that specific team, and then everyone else knows who you are. We all know who Nick Bosa is. We all know who, Khalil Mack was. We all know who Von Miller was. I mean, talk about these elite pass rushers. People know who Son Reddick is. Get up to Josh Sweat. Yeah. That'd be interesting. Yep. Barnett's fascinating to me. People saying that he's not going to make the roster, I think, are crazy. Who makes it ahead of him would be my question. I mean, you really think that Teron Jackson
Not
or
really
Derek
sure.
Barnett? I mean, he would have to be horrible to not make this roster, and I don't see it happening. I think he makes the roster. I saw these rumors about Jadeveon Clowney, and I clicked the article, and the article got me. There was no actual news tying Jadeveon Clowney to the Eagles. It was one of those like, the Eagles should sign him. Here's why. And while it made sense, and they've made moves for older 1-year pass rushers, they did it last year with what's his face, the guy who did nothing for Philadelphia from the Bears. I'm forgetting on his name right now. Yes, Robert Quinn. Yep. I think Clowney's too old. I don't have an interest in Clowney. I think Barnett is going to win that job. I think they feel confident with Barnett winning, which is, I guess, the backup to Josh Sweat, but really it's just a rotational pass rusher slot because everybody rotates in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all going to be that rotation, but I saw the same article too, and at first I was like, "Oh, interesting," and then
it wasn't real.
Okay, it's just all the speculation that you see in most of the articles this time of year. It would be. For multiple reasons, it'd be a curious signing. You know, I mean, the cheap shot on Wentz in the playoff game where he spirited him and took him out of the game, and that was it. I mean, I still hold a grudge for that, but you know, what are you going to do? I don't know if you have enough to offer, really. I mean, maybe, you know, but again, it goes back to, is it worth it, dollars and cents? But depth-wise, I mean, the Eagles do think highly of Derek Barnett. I mean, let's remember, Nick Sirianni said multiple times that he's a Derek Barnett fan. He loves the guy, the way he shows up to work. His work ethic is phenomenal. So in terms of just doing the right things to prepare, I think that the Eagles are highly viewing him, but this is his season. Like, they're obviously not going to sign anything. It's you got to prove it to us to make something happen here. So it'll be interesting to see, but he's going to have to make the most of his opportunities.
Dark Brown says, is Mariota a shoe-in for backup? I think he is. It feels like Philadelphia, ever since Foles, they want a carbon copy, just worse, a light version, if you will, of whoever their starting quarterback is, and they have that right now in Marcus Mariota behind Jalen Hurts. It feels like he is. I don't think McKee's going to do anything crazy. I don't think Ian Book's going to do anything crazy, and that's a battle for the third-string job. Mariota could give you Hurts out for 2 games after the Bears shoulder dislocation or whatever it was. Come in, steady the ship, run the offense, run the read option, be Jalen Hurts, but the light version. I think he's a shoe. I think he was a fine signing. I think it was.
I do too.
Closet really well done moves.
Yes, absolutely. I do too. And we were doing a show, so many shows ago, a couple months ago, but like it was like, hey, you know, who are you going to get? Like, backup quarterbacks, who's still available? You know, you kind of start seeing them go off the board, so to speak, and like, who are they going to sign? And Mariota was the one name I think that we were both in consensus of, like, well, hopefully they can make this happen. And then whenever it actually did, we were excited about it because, again, to your point, the Eagles offense can run a lot of things very similarly with him. You don't really miss a beat for the most part. I'm saying that, you know, again, very cautiously. You're missing something, the difference between Jalen Hurts, but he can run a very similar style of offense. And Alex Taney, the QB coach, had said as well, it's a huge benefit to have a guy who's a dual threat, who can run a little bit, and you don't have to change everything on the fly if, let's say, Jalen Hurts goes down for injury. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but the way that he plays, that's always a concern. And so, yeah, I'm in agreement, but it would shock me, right? Like, if we had someone else that they either signed or that, you know, Booker or McKee wins out on that's not happening. There's no way that's happening.
Shaddy says too much money on Mariota, Book to cut him. Yeah, and they gave him enough money to make him a comfortable backup. Remember, he comes from Atlanta, where he didn't really do much. Atlanta had a very down year offensively, but still was a starter. And then he gets, you know, way less money, but plenty in terms of holding a clipboard, being a backup, being available, and that's kind of your job as the backup quarterback. A couple more questions here, and then we'll move on. Princess says, honestly, would bring in Yannick Ngakoue over him if we could swing that. A lot of people talking about Yannick Ngakoue this week like it was for sure going to happen. There's no actual reporting on them bringing in Yannick Ngakoue, just to make that very, very clear. He's been rumored to Philadelphia for years, and he never has actually come. So I'll believe it when I see it. You know, that the idea that they were going to sign him this week was completely falsified and made up. There was no actual reporting to that at all.
Not against it, not opposed to it, but yeah, I agree.
Fine, it wasn't
one of those
actual
names.
News. Yes. And again, I think Josh and I try really hard in each of our videos, which again, you should be subscribed to, hit the thumbs up button. Most of you guys are, where it will tell you if there's real reporting to this. And if it's not, then we'll speculate on it. Be like, oh, okay, would this guy make sense? Here's our take. But we're not going to sit there and be like, it's going to happen. Click the video, because it's not going to happen. We're not going to try to, steer you guys wrong on the ship there. But what are you going to do? Let's see here. Mariota's plug and play, says Nick. Brian Biting says, either they have Cook over Hopkins. that's another thing, because DeAndre Hopkins, I did a reel on this, right? We talked about it. Dak Prescott says he don't want to play with it. He does shake his head yes and say he wants to play with Jalen Hurts. Everybody freaks out and says they're going to trade for him. It's going to happen. He wants to be traded to the Eagles. No.
Who doesn't want to play with the Eagles?
I said in my show, I love Ferraris. I absolutely love Ferraris. Doesn't mean I'm going to go buy one for $250,000, right? It's not going to happen. I can't afford one. The Eagles can afford D-Hop right now. So, I mean, come on. It's just not going to happen. So you're going to see that stuff happen for the next couple of months just because there's not much active news going on. But what are you going to do? What is interesting, I thought, which I haven't talked about yet on my show, maybe tomorrow, this article from Pro Football Focus, they ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks ahead of the NFL season, and it's interesting to say the least. So Mahomes won. No argument there, Josh. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, 2 and 3. There really isn't an argument here. You can make the case that I think Burrow is 2 because he's won more big games than Josh Allen, aka getting to a Super Bowl, winning an AFC championship game. Allen can be dropped a little bit on this list, but sure, this is fine. 1, 2, 3. In my perfect world, if I'm ranking these guys, 4's got to be Jalen Hurts. He can't be any lower than 4. You can put him as high as 2. You can't put him 1 because Mahomes exists, but he can't be lower than 4, right? Then you keep going with that in mind. You see Herbert 4, Rodgers 5, Lamar 6, and then Jalen Hurts. And this is where it feels like they were trying to stir up some controversy here. It feels grossly low. Because again, if you put if you put Jalen Hurts 3 or 4, you're not really arguing Herbert versus Burrow versus Allen, because honestly, any GM would take any of those 3 in a heartbeat over their current quarterback, over any of their quarterbacks out there not named Patrick Mahomes, right? Those are your top 4 guys. But the fact that you put Rodgers and Lamar Jackson ahead of Jalen Hurts makes absolutely no sense to me. Don't get me started on Justin Herbert, who can't seem to win enough big football games, choking against the Jaguars in what's a tough division, but still, he's got talent. Not like he's on a bad football team. What are your thoughts on them putting Jalen Hurts 7th here below Lamar Jackson, who, goodness gracious, don't get me started on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's grossly undervalued. And just quickly to your point of Justin Herbert, he feels like the one guy that can somehow just not be in the news in terms of the shortcomings that he's had. It's if this was any other guy, if it was Jalen Hurts, if it was Dak Prescott, if it was Patrick Mahomes, anybody who blows a lead like that is going to be obliterated for many weeks. And it's just kind of somehow under the rug. Justin Herbert. Now, he's got some crazy tools and his ability to throw the ball is incredible, but he also makes some not great decisions at times. So whatever you want to say about it, but I agree. You could definitely and should have Jalen Hurts higher. I'll say that if let's say that the Eagles had gone to the Super Bowl, right? And let's say that Jalen had just a very average or maybe even a subpar game, this list would then make a little more sense. But he just went to the best, the biggest stage that you can be on in this sport, and he played that well. Now, I know you could say the argument, there's not a large enough sample size. Everybody wants to go to that and say he had a breakout season, but we need to see more before we move him up the list. But I'm sorry, there's a difference between playing a regular season game and going to the Super Bowl and playing at MVP caliber. I mean, he played well enough where he could have won the MVP even being on the losing side. So to me, there's the names up there that, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, what's that all about? To me, I get that he's been great in past, but he's been declining. I know there's the injury that you could point to as well and say he's going to be better this season. Maybe he is, but he is declining. The age is catching up to him. You could see it. And so I don't know. To me, I would definitely have him above Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, and obviously for Justin Herbert for the reasons mentioned. But to your point, it's easy, whether it's, hey, talk all about praise of the Eagles or who's coming to the Eagles free agency, or hey, let's just go ahead and put a list out there that kind of slights Jalen Hurts a little bit. We'll get a lot of views that way. So I don't know. Is this legit? Did the PFF actually think this? And I don't know. I didn't look at the article closely enough, but are they going just based off the gradings? Because I know they did that for the receivers, or is this just
not grading? Okay. They do not have grades. No.
Then I don't know. It's just to me kind of clickbait or making people mad because it's ridiculous in my opinion.
Sure, career wise, Rodgers had a better career than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' career is a 4th as long as Aaron Rodgers. How many games in the playoffs have Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and Aaron Rodgers won in the past couple of years? Has Lamar won a playoff game? I don't even know. Has he won one? I think he's won one maybe. And it was against one of those, bad bottom wild card teams, as the Ravens were a 3 seed or something like that. And Justin Herbert, everyone thinks he's Josh Allen, and he's very close, but he does not win a lot of these very important, super big, mega games like he's supposed to. And I said this at the beginning. He has a good football team. I mean, they have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. They have 2 elite wide receivers. They have Austin Eckler had 18 touchdowns last year. He was number 1 in the league in touchdowns last year. They have, I mean, sure, I think a lot of it is Brandon Staley because he seems to be inept at any sort of offensive mindset because he's a defensive guy. So make that argument. Now, Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator, which we know what happened with him and Dak. They thought he was the next coming, the second coming of, I don't know, pick your favorite offensive coordinator, and then they fired him and he stinks. So it's just a weird list overall. Let's just quickly, I didn't scroll any further past Hurts. Lawrence is 8, Cousins 9, Dak 10, Tua, Stafford. Boy, Stafford and the Rams have a fascinating year ahead of them. They really do. They are the great question mark in the NFC right now. You know what the NFC is because it's Philly, and then you have the Niners roster, and then we do think that the Cowboys roster is pretty good. And then you have a couple other teams like Detroit who might be able to do something. The Vikings who have a decent roster, but are Detroit and the Vikings Super Bowl caliber teams? Probably not. After that, it's a very big drop-off to like the Falcons and the Bucks and the Commanders and the Giants, like these teams that we know are not Super Bowl contenders. But what are the Rams? Because they lose people. Sure, they lost Jalen Ramsey. But if Stafford and Cooper Kupp are Super Bowl year Stafford and Cooper Kupp, they're not going to be easy to beat at all. And I know they drafted Stetson Bennett, and people are like, oh, he had a great camp, right? There's another person who looks great right now because everyone does. But the Rams, to me, are the one team in the NFC that we truly don't know if they're going to win 4 games or they're going to win 11 and be a really tough out in the postseason because you got to deal with Kupp and Aaron Donald and future Hall of Famer Matt Stafford, if we make that argument. I don't know. I think they're the ones that I really think could be weird this year. Weird either being good or weird but either being bad. I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It remains to be seen with the injuries they had, the kind of the hangover season, and just what's going on with the whole. I guess really even Sean McVay considering was he gonna coach? Was he like all this other stuff is so random. But yeah, if they can get kind of the wheels in motion here, they could be definitely dangerous. I will say I do kind of think, I know there's kind of the suspensions with the gambling for the Detroit Lions, but I think that they could be spoilers for some teams, because again, like Aaron Rodgers is not with the Packers. You've got the Vikings who, yes, they played well last season and they got into the playoffs and they looked great in some games. And then all of a sudden it was not so great. Obviously, we know what happened in Philly, and it's Kirk Cousins. So it just always makes me not believe in him anyway. And then the Bears, right? Like they've been able to make some trades. I think they're trying to acquire things, but I'm not ready to say that Justin Fields is just going to automatically lead this team to an NFC North NFC North division title. So I don't know. I mean, to me, the Lions showing up on that last game of the season and beating Green Bay the way that they did, I do think that there's a chance they could get in there and make some noise. But it's Detroit, so then it also makes is it actually going to happen? But I'd like to see it. I mean, the acquisitions they've done, the picks that they had in the draft, I don't really like their picks. It's felt like reaching in a way, but they were filling specific needs, which is maybe not always the best draft strategy. But for the short term, I don't know. I'm interested to see how that pays off, but I think they could play spoilers.
Detroit has to prove that they're ready to be winners in the league. They've tried the past couple of years, but they haven't gotten to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, we're playing the Detroit Lions, a team that does not mess up, a team that will not blow leads, a team that beats every single bad team that they play. Like that's what Philly was last year. Philly was a team that didn't make mistakes. They didn't lose to bad football teams. They drubbed them. You think back to the Titan game. You think back to some of the Commander games, like drubbing these football teams.
Aside from the Commanders, I mean,
the first Commander game, right? The Carson Wentz Commander game, and then the later on one, right? But they crushed bad teams, and then they handled good teams. Think to the Cowboy games, right? They handled the good teams, the one in Philadelphia. So that's where Detroit has to get to earn my respect as a legit contender. They have my respect for being a team I don't want to play. Sure. And if you got to, play them in the divisional round in the Linc and they're hot and playing well, fine. But they have to get to a point where it's like the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are not going to lose to a, under 500 team week 10 in any given year. They're just not going to. They're going to beat them by 20. They're going to get out of there and move on with their lives. That's what I want to see out of Detroit.
Right.
Another thing I want to see here is our first super chat, our first entry into the ticket giveaway for the evening. Donatello Dragon gets 2 entries in here. Each dollar is an entry. As if you do not know, we are giving away 2 tickets to Eagles games this year, to an Eagle game this year, to 1 lucky subscriber to both channel, as we did with the jersey giveaway, which still have not shipped, by the way. We both, Josh and I, pre-ordered the 3 that we gave away to Vanny, to Tyler, and to Andrea. Yes, they have not shipped yet. So still under pre-order. I don't know how long it takes to print, 15,098 Jalen Carter jerseys, but whatever.
Yeah,
but
at some point,
we're upping our game because we had so much fun doing these live shows going into the draft. We're going to be doing them all off season long through training camp and into the start of preseason, where we will then draw randomly, pick a winner, and then you get to pick where you want to go. So every single super chat you do is 1 entry. $1 is an entry. You do $100, 100 entries, $2, 2 entries. And, some people won with barely doing any entries for the jersey giveaway. So fun times, 2 entries there for Donatello Dragon. Chiefs lost to the Colts last season. Sure, right? It happens. It happens. And we lost to the Commanders, right? It's so hard to go undefeated in a given year, but you are going to win the majority of your games against bad football teams. Even like the Bear game, right? That was a pesky, hard game, one that past Eagle teams would have lost. Hurts get banged up and they pull it away and they win, right? That's what you need the Lions to be able to do, and not have these stretches where they lose close games to mediocre football teams and then get blown out by good teams. They got to be more consistent for me to give them like keys to the castle, have fun, go and, be the best team in the NFC. But they have a chance to. They definitely have a chance to. They have the roster to, is the right words there. Is Dan Campbell ready to become the best coach in the NFC? Can Goff be the top 3 quarterback in the NFC? Right? Those are the question marks. Is Dan Campbell fun to watch, but is he going to actually coach and take him to multiple playoff wins? We forget how many games you got to win in the playoffs against the best teams. It's hard to do. It's hard. Man.
Very hard to do. Yes. Yeah. He's fun to watch. And I'm not saying, or nor do I think that they're going to win the NFC, but it wouldn't surprise me if they won the NFC North and, maybe one playoff game. But it's not I don't know. They're not a team where I'm ready at the level of saying like, oh yeah, they could be in the Super Bowl. Like there's no way in my mind, at least at this point. I do think they have an interesting and exciting roster. So I'm excited to see how that kind of next jump for them. But just again, like one team to keep an eye on. I think they're up there with the Rams. Like, do they take a next step? Because most seasons, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's I think like 50-ish% is usually what the turnover is in the playoff teams. Right. So you take a look at last year's playoff teams, 50% of the teams most likely will not make it there. So, okay, what are the other spots going to be taken up with? And that's where I think the Detroit Lions come into play.
I have an interesting comment here from Nick. He's asking about the jersey giveaway. Let's just clear things up right now. He says, does each dollar equal a giveaway entry? So like $200 be 200 entries? Yes, exactly. So Vanny just did a $2 super chat, and that means he gets 2 entries. Now, they all compound, right? So Vanny has done multiple $2 and $5 entries over the past couple of weeks since we started this. So you can build up to as many entries as you want, right? So if you gave, 10 today, 100 next week, then you have 110 entries after next week. So it's just dollar-based is an entry is how we do it for this one. So if you figure, Eagles upper level tickets are let's just say $300, $350 for a regular season game. You do $100, you have a, higher chance to win, and you're not paying full price. So that's kind of the thought process there.
And you're winning 2 tickets. So, not just one, you're winning 2 tickets.
Great.
But yes, it was, we definitely are. We're having too much fun with this. So we got to, and you may go to a game that we're going to go to, we haven't officially put it out there to say, which ones we will go to yet, but when we do the giveaway, we will 100% confirm these are the games that we're going to. This is what we're planning on. So if you want to choose a game that we'll be at, we'll buy 4 tickets in that section, me, Thomas, and then 2 of you will show up if you guys want to. If you don't, you can be across the furtup way. We don't have to sit together. So that's fine. Just putting that one out there. But
we're very loud at games where we yell and scream a lot, and it's it's up to you.
It's a good time. Yep. And it'll be with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. That's
right.
Who you're going
with. The jerseys that we wear. He has the AJ Devonta. Although I will say, we're not that annoying guy in your section who's like extra annoying. I've had that 3 games I went to the Linc this past year. I had one guy, Eagle fans too, which I love everybody, but who was so annoying. It's like, please shut up and watch the game and then cheer when we all cheer. We're not those guys. I will say that we're not those guys. But
yeah. In the right timing. And I'll just make a correction just to make sure. I know you said Vanny. We were talking about the jersey, but Donatello got him down for those $2 on the last one.
Donatello. Yes. Vanny was the one who won previously won one of the jerseys. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Let's see here. Are you guys louder that the Vet's 700 club seats? Because that was loud, and I loved every minute. But neither of us ever went to the Vet. I was too young,
I did
and
not.
Josh was probably too young as well. Honestly, I mean, my parents did not take me to my first Eagle game until I was probably like 14 or 15. Right? Games are. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. You got multiple siblings. I have multiple siblings. Josh has multiple siblings. We had more things. You can watch the game on TV, which I don't blame them.
Exactly. Yeah. And with my parents and family being Cowboys fans, that I wasn't at the age to where it's like, hey, we'll go with you, nor do we would pay for, flight and go to Eagles games and everything else. The cards were stacked against me in that scenario.
What are you going to do? Brian Biting says, hey, guys, what's your take on Smitty and what he said? So a couple of things. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I didn't mention all of it here. Devonta Smith basically went on the Brandon Marshall podcast, because everyone goes on the Brandon Marshall podcast now. And he said he's a top 10 receiver in the league. But he also said the big takeaway from the Super Bowl and what kind of, made them lose was turnovers, which was interesting to me, right? That could be taken as a shot at Jalen Hurts. We know it's not, because that's not how Smitty rolls. It's not a shot at Jalen Hurts, but he's not wrong. The Hurts fumble was a big momentum shift in that game, but I would argue that Hurts fumble is not why we lost that game. The defense gave up 10, up 10 at halftime, gave up 24 points in the second half, couldn't get stops whenever they needed to, so on and so forth. As Ohana just said, his comments were taken out of context. So we'll talk about that. Is he a top 10 receiver in the league? That's debatable. Not because I don't think he's good. He's my favorite player on the Eagles, right? But we're talking about 10 receivers in the National Football League, and there are a lot of good ones. I mean, just looking at the list, I'm trying to pull it up right here as I talk here. I mean, you got to pick him over some of these elite guys that I know that we just aren't ready to do yet. Like, you wouldn't take him over Tyreek Hill. Let's just be honest, okay? I love Devonta Smith. I wouldn't take him over Tyreek Hill.
Right.
I wouldn't take him over Diggs. I wouldn't take him over Brown. I wouldn't take him over Justin Jefferson. Right? So how many is that? I wouldn't take him over Adams. That's 6. I wouldn't take him over Chase. That's 7. I wouldn't take him over Kupp. That's 8. And so then maybe you get to that point where you go next, because then you have D-Hop. You have Deebo Samuel. He's 11 on this list. There's Metcalf. There's an argument for him being around the top 10. But it's not like it's a giant slight to say Devonta Smith is not a top 10 receiver at all, because there are some serious receivers a little bit higher who have already proved themselves because they've been in the league longer, right? I mean, Smith can ball out this year. I think he will. Think about his final year at Alabama when the Heisman Trophy was way better than year 2 and year 1. But the idea that it's like a slight to say he's for sure not the 8th best guy in the league, to me, is dumb, because there are some insanely good receivers in the National Football League.
There are, completely. And I don't have anything wrong with people that are saying that he is a top 10 or that he's not a top 10, because to your point, that there's names that have already solidified themselves. But I think we've both said we're excited to see what he does this upcoming season. And I do think after this season, it's going to be, he is a top 10 receiver. I really think he's going to take an even further jump. He had a great year last year, but I think he's going to go even more. And so it may not be as much of an argument, but I'm excited. I like the fact that he said he's top 10, because I mean, that's the mentality you want. I mean, you want your player to be confident. What's he going to say? You say, hey, you think you're a top 10 receiver, or where do you think that you rank? And he would just be like, I don't know. I'm okay. Like, no, you want a dog. Like, you want a player like that. And Darius Slay backed him up. He's like, hey, he's a straight dog. He's top 10, no doubt. So that's what we want from our players. But I agree with you. I mean, you look at the resumes, that receiver list looks better to me than the quarterback list you pulled up. Like, I'm looking at recency. Like, you got to prove it to me. You can make a case on those other receivers. I'm on board with that. But the quarterback list, going back to Jalen Hurts at 7, that's absolutely ridiculous. And hey, maybe if Devonta Smith stops eating McDonald's, I don't know about all that.
That was a funny comment. That was a funny comment.
He says diet doesn't matter. I love the fact that he's at the age and obviously athletic enough to just eat whatever he wants and can play at that high of a level. But there is a point in time, and I'm not a professional athlete, obviously, but there's still a point in time where I'm sure that all the veterans can tell him, okay, that's cool. Enjoy it for right now. But there will be a point you'll wake up and say, oh my gosh, I need to change my diet. That was a hilarious quote that he said.
That was very funny. Joseph Thies gets 2 entries into the jersey giveaway. Love both your channels. Appreciate that. We appreciate the love, guys. I mean, honestly, we really, and a lot of people that you can watch on YouTube, and the fact you choose both of us is not overlooked. Shaddy says he's the best route runner in the National Football League. There's definitely an argument there. I mean, but again, it's different from the quarterback battle where there are 4 elite quarterbacks right now, and then you got to make an argument for the rest of them because they've had either injuries with Lamar and Aaron Rodgers, or they struggle like Dak has. But in terms of receivers, I mean, you would take Tyreek's route running and Justin Jefferson's route running over Devonta Smith. I think you would if you were trying to be unbiased. Now, is it this? If I can get it on camera from this versus like this, or is it more like that? I mean, they're a lot closer than you would think. So no slight.
Right.
I'm telling you. He's my favorite player on the Eagles. I have his jersey, and it's hanging up right off screen. I love the guy. I think he's incredible. I love going back and watching his final year at Alabama highlight tape because it's stupid what he did to SEC quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And we've only seen 2 years. And in year 2, he had 1,000 yards receiving as a number 2 receiver because A.J. Brown was insane. So, you know, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm excited. He is fantastic. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree. I mean, if I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, like if you strictly just want to look at route running, I don't know, you could make the case. You could say he might be up there as the top, if not, top 3 route runners. I think the pieces and the elements where he's adding to his game and he needs to, and what separates the Justin Jeffersons, the Tyreek Hills, those guys of that world is it's physicality. It's battling for a ball. And he showed some more of that towards the end of the season, but he still has to get stronger. I mean, this guy's nicknamed Skinny Batman for a reason. Like, he's not ever going to be Swole Batman, but like he needs to put on a little bit more weight and get better at the release, which I love that he's working with AJ Brown already. And he's going to work even more over training camp. And AJ said, hey, we're working on release. We're going to help him with that. And I think it's great. Both of those can take pieces from one another because AJ at the same time said, I'm learning some of the route running from Devonta. So both of them are going to improve. AJ's looking to become a complete receiver, whatever that means for a guy who set the franchise record. But I'm excited to see. I think both of them have a really fantastic season again.
Let's see. Devonta Smith, Joseph Theis, member of the channel. Appreciate that. Devonta Smith is 8. There's an argument there. I think there's definitely an argument there. I think Josh has made a great argument, though, in terms of where, versus physicality is a big thing for receivers. Excuse me, stuff like that. So, I don't know. We'll see. I love Smitty, though. Dontel Dragon wants to jump in on with 5 more entries into our jersey giveaway. He has a question for Josh. Your parents were Cowboy fans, Josh. I have so many questions. Like, how did you escape the indoctrination? I don't know the answer to this either. I do know Josh's parents are Cowboy fans. His siblings are Cowboy fans. But I just don't know. How did you become the Cowboys' biggest rival? Because my parents were Bronco fans, and I just wanted my own team, and so I randomly chose Philly at the age of 3. I mean, truly, I have no idea why. I just picked them. But, I mean, there were no threat to the Bronco family that we were at the time. You went from Cowboy to Eagle. How did you defect from that?
Yeah. I like I say, I had the cards stacked against me. My parents are, I would say they were Cowboys fans. They really don't keep up much with the NFL. Right. They are, I guess, Josh Davis fans, and they've kind of gotten on board somewhat with Eagles fans. But there's also a side of my family. They're very diehard Cowboys fans. So thankfully, somehow, my parents did not force that on us. Growing up and watching, one of my brothers is a Packers fan. The other one was a Peyton Manning fan, just wherever he was playing at obviously for the Colts a long time, but then the Broncos. But I mean, it was honestly just growing up. I don't really recall getting into the NFL and following it until 7 or 8, something like that. But I remember the first game that I can remember vividly was the Cowboys, because we had just local channels. So that's all we watched is when the Cowboys were on. If I'm going to watch football, I'm probably going to see the Cowboys. And I'm being told, hey, the Cowboys are this great team. And, I hadn't seen that. I was too young to see any of the glory days,
right,
and Emmitt Smith and those. So I see the first game is in, I think it's 2000. But it was Donovan McNabb and the Birds showed up to Dallas and beat 40 to 10 or so. It was a crazy just onslaught. And so after that was the first game I could remember. And I'm like, you kidding me? I'm not a Cowboys fan. This team is incredible. And you see Brian Dawkins and McNabb and Deuce Staley, Jeremiah Trotter. I mean, it immediately happened there. And then over the years, I mean, I was already so invested. And then obviously, start playing Madden and get into all of that. So, And then, at that point, I've been a fan for 20 years or, almost 20 years, or I guess more than 20 years now, but through it all. So yeah, if we have ups and downs now, it's are you kidding me? No, I'm definitely an Eagles fan, but I somehow, cards are stacked against me, but I survived. And I'm very thankful for that, because what could have been? I mean, there's a lot of times I think back, I could have very easily been a Cowboys fan, and how terrible would that have been?
Pretty bad. At least really sad in terms of never having some real joy in the postseason. But what are you going to do? I think a lot of us, that early 2000 teams, kind of indoctrinated us into Philadelphia because they were so good, they were so fun. But we forget that Philly has been one of the class teams in the NFC our entire lifetime. I consider my football lifetime to be 2000 and on because I was too young for 97 and 98 and 99. But since then, I mean, you think about all the winning seasons, you think about being really, really good for a large stretch of that, going to NFC championship games, going to a Super Bowl, going to another Super Bowl, right? Like there's been a lot of success. Whereas you pick the Lions in 2000, you pick the Texans, you pick the Jaguars, there are not a lot of winning seasons, and it's got to be rough there. But I don't know. What are you going to do? Okay, people getting into the jersey giveaway here. Let's make sure I don't forget some of these. Where is it? Dontel Dragon, my dad's a Niner fan. It's been rough lately. Yeah, I'm telling you, that Niner rivalry came out of nowhere because we did not care about the Niners. I had no care for them up until recently, where it's like, wait a second, we can't stand you guys.
I know.
It's very weird. It's very weird.
It was Cowboys and Niners fans, but yeah, you're right. It was like, I don't care, not a big deal. And then all of a sudden, here you go with Shanahan and all the whiners and Debo crying and all that. Yeah, it's definitely blown up quite a bit.
Louise Harris is showcasing that she does not have to, you don't have to type anything if you want to enter. Louise has $1 entry, and Louise can technically win.
There you
That'd
go.
be quite the victory if Louise with one entry wins 2 tickets to Eagle games. So shout out to Louise getting one in here. And then Wheelsus. Is he saying that name? Wheelsus? I've been Eagle fan since 1977. And my daughter married a Jeez, your daughter married a Cowboy fan.
Ooh.
My daughter and both my grandchildren are Cowboys fans. See, that feels like poor parenting. That kind of feels like you got to step in and say no at some point. I mean, that's a major red flag.
That is, yeah. I feel for Wheels. I definitely feel for you, because not only that would be brutal. I mean, like, as a dad of a daughter now, like, okay, so your daughter marries a Cowboys fan, and I've got a question too about, like, do you pay for the wedding of a Cowboy, like, as the dad of the daughter? Oh man, that would feel even worse. Like, that's insult to injury there. My condolences to you on that side.
Yeah, that is definitely tough. I mean, to see your precious little grandbaby in a Dak Prescott jersey is just sickening. That would be really rough. Although I'll say this, I mean, my girlfriend's dad is a Cowboys fan. Now, he's not like a nauseating, ridiculous Cowboy fan, but he's a Texas guy, and every Texas guy's a Cowboy fan. So he didn't do his due diligence in me, but what are you going to do? Here, Louise says this because she actually had a $1 entry there. Wheels us, you get 5 entries, by the way. 5 entries in the jersey giveaway. Here's what Louise says. When I win, I like the confidence. I want the Tampa Bay tickets because I live in St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay sucks. I also went to many games of the Vet, 700 level, best time. Well, Louise, you get to pick, so you would get 2 tickets to the Tampa Bay Bucks game, which hopefully will be a win. That's also a Monday nighter, so that could be fun as well. So when you win, good luck to you. You have a chance. Got a $1 chance. I mean, come on, anyone can do $1 and have a chance. Cool Rain says my dad's a Giants fan. My uncle and my cousin is a Cowboys fan. Oh boy, it's tough. It's tough. How about this? 20 entries. There's a lot of chances there. Let me see. I want to say this right. Denise. That's hard to say. Can you say that? Denise. I don't know. I'm not sure. He says, Dennis Designs. He says it right there. There you go. Subscribe to both of you and more. Just
it helps to read. It does help. I wasn't reading that either.
I was like, Denise.
Just looking at this.
Subscribe to both of you and more. Justin Eagles, Junkie Fly goes fly. Found out Lair Thomas with the chat sports. Missed that. Yep. Not anymore. In case you were wondering. Not anymore. Appreciate you guys subscribing here. And 20 entries. There you go. You got 20 entries.
Got you down.
To the jersey giveaway. Yeah. Come hang out over here. It's a lot more fun over here. Let's just say that. Is it true Goddard is working with the wide receivers now too? Working, right? I mean, running routes with them, sure. He's not just over there with the receiver group the entire time. He's working out as a tight end. He's not changing. But sure, he wants to get better. And how else do you get better as one of the best pass catching tight ends? Well, most tight ends are just bigger wide receivers who aren't as good at cutting on the field. And so, sure, go ahead and work out with the wide receivers. It's not a big deal, right? We're making it a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's cool. Not a big deal.
Like to see, I mean, the camaraderie and actually, trying to figure out how they can each get each other better. Iron sharpens iron. So you saw a little bit of video surfacing of Goddard working out with the receivers or kind of going through the route running. But apparently they're having some film sessions together. I think he made mention of it was Goddard. I think it may have been Calcaterra, maybe. There's one other person. It was Goddard, AJ Brown, Devontae, and maybe Calcaterra that were going through film study of just like route running and then actually going to go try it on the field. So I'm interested to see Calcaterra. I know that tight end spot, hey, what about tight end 2? Who's that going to be? What step or what jump that they're going to take this season? But I know that, you're not ready to give up on Calcaterra either. I think that there could be some potential. So, the fact that he's hopefully working on some other things too, maybe he gets involved a little bit more on the offense.
Brian Biding said, any news on linebackers? There's no news in terms of signing linebackers. We have heard, and we've not heard and not seen anything about Nicholas Morrow at OTAs, right? They've snuck in all these little, here's Devonta Smith catching a pass, here's Dean, here's, Jalen Carter. They have not put Nicholas Morrow on the Eagle Twitter account yet. And we need whoever runs those accounts to give us some Morrow content. We've heard nothing from them. Nothing about them, nothing from them. Zero about Nicholas Morrow, who is a big part of what the Eagles are trying to do this year. So, I don't know.
He really is. Even just one picture would be good. Let's just see him in the Eagles gear, something to talk about there. But I don't know. I mean, we've mentioned it before. I think, and curious to get your thoughts on this as well. I definitely think there's going to be a couple more acquisitions. But the question is when I think there will be a couple more. Now, whether that's a free agency, whether it's a trade, whatever, but I think there will be a couple because Howie's Howie. And I think that the more that this thing builds, he sees that window of opportunity as, yes, we have multiple years, but I mean, he's going for it, right? Like, it's not like he's just selling away the long-term to say, let's give it, but he's still going for it. And I could see him with the cap space, because we have a little over 13 million still remaining, for him to make a move. Now, at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if it's after training camp, because then you can actually figure out for sure, okay, we thought we kind of had maybe a weakness on linebacker, and I'm not saying he said this, but if he goes through and he's like, yeah, we actually have a little bit of weakness, then go out and get someone. Because remember, he got CJ Gardner-Johnson August 30th of last season. And so you never rule out that with Howie getting other players, solidifying the team. But I think there'll be a couple. I don't know. What do you think, though? Do you expect someone? And I guess if there is going to be anyone, when do you think that might happen?
Yeah, I think it'd be training camp. I think if they go linebacker, it's Patrick Queen or Isaiah Simmons, and it's because they look at training camp and they say, we aren't ready. But there's not. I don't think the Eagles sign anybody for the next 2 months. I think they're not signing anybody for the next 2 months. It would be a middle of training camp or an injury or after training camp, just like CJ Gardner-Johnson was. Because I think they looked at safety last year and they said, these guys aren't ready. We need to go get somebody. And they did. Eric Torres with the $1 donation. That is one entry. There you go. One entry into the jersey giveaway. Like we said, one entry could do it. Sorry, ticket giveaway. Ticket giveaway, not a jersey giveaway. And then my mom just sent me this. There you go. If you wanted proof of Thomas's love for the Eagles, that's the first documented picture of me in Eagles gear. I got this for Christmas. This was back in 03, 04, 02. I don't remember when this was, but yeah, there you go. That is little Thomas Mott in the gear. I mean, that was like the best Christmas ever, opening up Eagles gear, because your parents finally give it to you. I had all these Broncos stuff. I had like a John Elway jersey when I was 4, because my parents wanted me to be a Bronco fan. But to get the first Trader outfit was always clutch. Yeah,
I'm telling you, man. I remember that.
Whenever you start hosting shows on YouTube for a team, people always are like, "Are you actually a fan? You don't actually like the team?" I got that picture there, so we gotta get some job
actual
pictures
proof.
From Young.
Yes,
actual proof. The Latin Inferno, 5 entries. I think it's his first time into the ticket giveaway. Every time I go to the Eagles versus Rams game, the Eagles win, which includes the Super Bowl year in 2017. Super chat for the Eagles versus Ram tickets and a Super Bowl win in 2023. There you go. So we almost should pick the Latin Inferno, because if he goes,
you get a guaranteed win
the Super Bowl and a guaranteed win. So 5 entries in there. We appreciate that.
All right.
Pick the Rams game. There you go. We get you the Rams game. How many people are giving away tickets to any game this year, right? I mean, some people would pick like one game, any regular season game. You pick
whatever you want.
People are
saying
we
may be there.
We may be there. People are saying,
and I'll just go ahead and throw this. I'll buy you a beer if you want to sit with us. That's not to entice you to sit with us, but I'll buy you a beer or your drink of your choice. You don't have to drink your beer.
That's fine. Water. You're screaming a lot. A nice soda. That's fine. When we get rid of Quez or Derek, means mean linebacker. I hope to make it worth it. I don't think we get rid of Quez or Derek Barnett, honestly. If we're being honest, I don't think it happens. But I don't know. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm trying to see if there was another story that I thought about bringing up here. but I don't think that there was. Oh, we didn't even mention the bike incident with AJ Brown, which is hilarious now. But can you imagine if he tears his ACL if you're getting hit by a car? If he breaks his leg or fractures his wrist? Holy cow. Like, we're all like, oh, it's so funny. Oh, yay.
That could have been so bad.
But it's like, oh my gosh, that could have been really serious. And then this whole bike for autism thing the Eagles have done for a long time is fantastic, but it feels so scary to have all the players out there biking through Philadelphia, which is not necessarily the most bike-friendly town in America. Like, geez, could we do a walk? Maybe like a walk for this, a bike? You know, it's like, man.
That scared me to death. Whenever I saw that, I was like, "Oh man!" I thought really the worst serious for a second too, because I'm a cyclist, so like I do a lot of events cycling, and so like seeing that even resonated more. And I'm not gonna lie, there have been some terrifying moments on the road with vehicles because again, like some people pay attention, some people don't. Some people are texting, and if you don't have it roped off at every single section, which to your point, Philadelphia is probably not the best and easiest unless you just have an unlimited amount of people, that volunteers that are blocking off streets, but you can't shut down the whole city. So, I mean, thankfully it wasn't worse. The first reaction was, okay, thankfully he's not hurt there. But the fact that, he was live streaming, and I know people freaking out as soon as we saw that, like, oh my gosh, he drops his phone. Did he just get hit? Like, what happened?
Right.
And, he just picks it up and he's okay. But yeah, that could have been terrible. It does remain to ask the question, I guess, like, do they look at doing it differently next season? Like, because of here's what happened.
Yes.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Because, or, maybe to say, hey, like, let's not live stream because, it was still the car's fault there, but it's not really the safest to be live streaming on a bike. But and he wasn't wearing the helmet. I don't know if you saw that, but that's also
wasn't like clipped in.
I'm like, bro, come on, man. Like, we need you to be fully locked in there.
I see skiers do that all the time. I ski every year. I snowboard, but so many people don't buckle it. And it's like, okay, either don't wear it, which is fine, it's your choice, or buckle the darn thing if you're gonna have it on your head. Because as soon as you go like this, you don't have it on your head anymore. So. Yeah,
they wear it as a fashion statement. That's
not
what
a fashion
it is at that point.
Saving your life and making sure we win a Super Bowl this year. Okay, very, very. I mean, Patrick Mahomes can't jet ski, right? Isn't that in his contract? I think he's not allowed to jet ski. I gotta look that up. I'm pretty sure
so. There's
can't ski or jet ski.
Yep, I know. There's tons of clauses. Everyone has different clauses nowadays of like, hey, you can't do this during the regular season, but. I agree with Tracy Penny there. Says players should just walk the 5K. That would be a little more secure and safe. Just let's just walk it. You're making an appearance. You're out there in public. People can take pictures. You can sign some autographs. It's for a fantastic cause, and no reason to get out there and have potential injury. So yeah, let's just keep them to the 5K.
Mahomes was asked about. He says, "I still don't think I'm allowed to play baseball." That's interesting. I'm sure baseball is not going to be allowed as well. I know there are a lot of prohibited activities in the contract. They're everything from like jet skiing to I don't know what they all are. I read a lot of them. So Mahomes this guy.
Oh my
he
gosh.
Can't play baseball and he can't jet ski. Jet skiing that unsafe? I guess it could be, sure, depending on how fast you go. I don't see it as like a. To me, skiing would go ahead of jet skiing, right?
I would think so. It has to. I mean, I know there's some jet ski and boating accidents that happen, but
of course.
Unless he's like racing them, I guess, like, and maybe they're saying, you know what, we are paying you an ungodly amount of money, so sorry, you're gonna sign this for us. So maybe not the hardest decision to give that up for that amount of money, but it is still funny. No basketball, no baseball.
That's a good podcast question. If you were to have Jalen Hurts on like a podcast, like you just signed this massive contract. Is there anything you can't do right now? Can you go skydiving tomorrow? That's
a really good question.
That'd be a great podcast question.
Yeah, because what would they take out of it? But again, it's like to me, it feels like Jalen Hurts is one of those players you wouldn't have to, or you don't get put any clauses because like. What else does he do, right? Like, I mean, the thing that we love about him the most is like he's always in the building working, and he's so dedicated to his craft. But it seems like he's just so much driven and just like head down, attack the day that sometimes I worry about him. Like, does he want to take a little bit of time off or do something else just for activities and leisure? But at the same time, too, I mean, these contracts, it's crazy when you dive into them and they actually release them saying like, oh, there's these different clauses like Mahomes. So I'd be curious. I'd be interested if there's anything like that.
Tracy says no bungee jumping. That's another one. I've never done it. I would bungee jump. I think bungee jumping would be fun, but I also read a story the other day about some guy who bungee jumped and he didn't bungee back up. It just, so, what are you going to do?
Yeah, heights are not necessarily my thing.
Not a good time.
I don't know.
All right, we'll do like 5 more minutes. A couple more questions here, and then we'll hop off for the evening. Eagles only have 3 1 p.m. games this season. It's fascinating because the Eagle, I mean, I'm so used to getting home from church at like 12:30 and the Eagles kicking at 1. Almost waiting for 4 o'clock games is a bummer because you're like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But it tells you that they want to put them in prime time. They want them either at night or they want them on the Fox America's Game of the Week, which is the afternoon game, which tells you they're really good.
Come on. And they could have fewer than 1, actually. I mean, if you look at the Thursday night flex scheduling report, they could have fewer than 3 1 p.m. p.m. games because of the whole NFL release, which, I mean, again, the NFL is all about money. So whatever you want to say about that, I did a show very briefly touching on the fact that, they're not really looking out for us peasants. It's Amazon's offering them a whole lot of money to get the best games. And so they said, sure, we're going to do it. But I mean, you could have another game that's not a 1 o'clock and you move it to another prime time with Amazon saying, oh, hey, we want that one. So it'd be interesting.
What are the 3 1 o'clock games? Washington's a 1 o'clock game. This is crazy, right? You literally have 4, 8, 8, 1, 4, 4, 4. I mean, there's so many late games here. Okay, so both Washington games are 1 o'clock games. Okay, so what's the other one? Arizona,
which technically weeks 13 through 17 are the flex schedule. So it would only be Arizona if they chose. But it wouldn't surprise me, right? Like if you got the storyline of Jonathan Gannon
and the Cardinals are somehow good.
There. Yeah.
This is wild though, right? CBS. So Buffalo is Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. Fox is going to be your prime Fox guys. Technically, that could be Tom Brady, right? Because it's Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt starting this year. Then you have NBC. Then you have again the Fox guys. Then again the Fox guys. And then non-Fox guys. So you get to see Tony and Troy here, and Tony and Troy, you would think here, maybe? Or this could be
surely it's Tom Brady Day. Tom Brady Day.
It is Tom Brady Day. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Nick says, what time does your live show start? I can never catch them on time. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Eastern. I live in the Eastern time zone. Josh lives in Dallas. He lives in the Central time zone, so it's 6 for him. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. No.
Mountain.
5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific. There you go. Boy, 4 o'clock.
And I can never keep track if you're in Arizona. So sorry to those.
Arizona is Pacific, right? Isn't it far enough over there?
I can't ever remember, but it's when the time zone changes, they don't change with the rest of the company or the country to the deal. So I don't know, but I've got a lot of coworkers, so that's why I said company. But I got a lot of coworkers in Arizona, so I'm always like, are they 2 hours this time of year, or are they 1 hour? So I'm always getting it confused.
Yeah, I almost moved to Arizona for a job. That would have been fun. Arizona is not a bad place. Not a bad place at all. Cool Rain says, thank goodness I don't have to get up at 3 a.m. to watch them. That's true. That's very true. Yeah, the later games for everybody who's not in the United States, it helps out a lot because you get the 6-hour time difference. It gets a little different. So,
a little better in that case.
Yep. What do you got going on the rest of the week, Josh? Anything exciting? Anything going on?
Not a whole lot. I mean, probably going to have a show either tomorrow or Friday, depending on schedule, but try to put that together. Take a little while and then kind of enjoy some time with the family. May have a little weekend getaway. So it's Sandy's birthday coming up here in a week, 2 weeks. Yeah,
there
2
you
weeks. Go. So we'll see. Kind of hoping to relax, but you never know. Whenever news breaks, all of a sudden it's like, well, I actually got to do another show here. So. And I would ask what you're doing, but I already know here in a couple of days you're headed out. You're going to be traveling the Highlands of Scotland.
Yes. Happy birthday to Sandy early. That's awesome. Very soon. Yeah. The one scary thing is it's Memorial Day weekend, and we fly to JFK Friday morning, then sit in the JFK airport till 6 when we fly to London. So travel weekend, it's like, please don't delay my flight JetBlue from Atlanta to JFK. That way I don't miss the other flight. But as long as that goes off, we're gonna be just fine. But what are you gonna do? All right, guys, plenty more stuff happening next couple of days and weeks. As always, I'll be doing shows from the UK, not every day, but as often as I can. Obviously, Josh is still killing it with his shows, grinding as much as he can. Be sure to subscribe. He's almost hitting 5,000 subscribers, which is easily the fastest rise in the Eagle community ever on YouTube. So congrats to Josh. And we'll have plenty more stuff happening. No live show next Wednesday because I will be out of town. But there will be a live show the weekend after. Before we go, though, Andrea wants to make sure that she gets in at the buzzer. My super chat is super late, but better late than never. What's up, guys? Ready to win the tickets to take my dad to see us whip the Cowboys. There you go. Andrea, we appreciate that. You got 20 entries.
Got you down.
Entries. So at the last second, but we got you there. It would be great for you to take your dad. That'd be a lot of fun. And I think we're going to be at that Cowboy game, too. Josh and I have talked about because Josh lives in Dallas. I could fly in and we could easily go to that one together. So
that is a 99.9% sure right now.
Feels very confident. That's
tickets,
one of
the
ones we're going to. Yes. Tickets aren't available yet, so that's why we haven't bought them. As soon as they are, we're going to be getting in on it. So, all right, guys, we appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure that you guys go ahead. Oh, Josh went away. There he is. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Play more stuff happening in a couple of days and weeks. We appreciate you. See you guys.
We'll see you.